The Old Guard is directed by Prince-Bythewood and stars Charlize Theron, Ejiofor, and many other talented cast members, and is based on the comic book series of the same name by Greg Rucka and Leandro Fernandez. And in this movie, a bunch of people who are basically immortal and have lived through generations and have seen centuries of wars and fighting have come together because there is a new girl on the scene who happens to have those same powers and could help him in saving the world, all while there is another person who wants the powers of the immortals and use it for his personal gain, and there's a villain and they have to fight this villain and figure out how to stop him once and for all. This is a film that I did not really know much about going into. I saw some of the posters for it. I tried to stay away from most of the promotional material. Actually, I didn't really know it was a comic until very recently either. So if you're gonna ask me for comic knowledge, I'm sorry, I don't really know too much about it. But if you're fans of the comic, then I'm curious to know what you guys thought of this movie. All I can tell you is I saw the film today on Netflix, and I'm gonna share my thoughts with you on that. Charlize Theron is a fantastic actress, and when it comes to action movies, I've pretty much liked everything she's done. She's a very talented, very badass person, and when she's in the zone in this movie too, she knocks it out of the park. I think she's easily the best part of this film too. I think her performance is great. I think the humanity she brings to her character is also fantastic. The entire cast actually is pretty good in the roles that they have. Everybody does a really good job over here. The action sequences, for the most part, I would say, are pretty satisfactory. There's a couple of really great scenes. There's one really cool scene in the first act. There's a scene on a plane with this new girl who Charlize Theron fights because she's trying to prove her immortality, and she's trying to show that the new girl is also immortal. That's a pretty fun scene. I like that quite a bit. There's some stuff towards the final act of the film, which was also really, really fun. And when it comes to the depth of the characters, this film actually does make a really genuine effort to give a lot of depth to them, their backstories, sort of emphasize what they've seen, what they've been through, and why now that they're at this junction in their lives, some of them are extremely tired, they don't want to keep doing this anymore, and how that their entire immortality thing eventually does start to take a bit of a toll on them, and that there are rules that can be bent in said immortality. I found this to be very interesting and fascinating, and the action sequences are very spread out, so there's a lot of narrative downtime in the middle of it, which is devoted to scenes like this. And for some people that could be a pace drop, it could be like the film sagging quite a bit. At first I thought the same, but as it went on I thought, well, it's needed. You do need something to latch on to these characters, because if you're going to have them be immortal and amazing and basically like they can take any kind of knife wound, bullet wound, anything, and they'll just heal up from it in like 3 seconds, there's not much humanity you can add to that. I think some of the direction from Bythewood on display is pretty solid. There were a few moments though where I thought the camera work in the action scenes was a little strange. There's one moment in particular where it cuts a bit too much. It's just one moment though, and it's not going to affect the final grade I give this movie, but it reminded me of that moment in Taken 3 where Brian Mills jumps a fence. Just way too many cuts in that 5-second frame. I'm like, what was that about? That was a little strange. The rest of it was pretty solid. It was very John Wick-esque in its approach. These are things you're going to hear in more reviews than one. And sometimes it works, like I said, and for the most part I would say they were satisfactory. Unfortunately, I also think the film was a bit of a mixed bag in some ways, and I think the reason is because at one point in time it stops being as intriguing and fascinating as it could. The first half is really great. It starts off with the story about how they've lived through, like I said, centuries, and they've seen a lot of shit, and they've known some people who were like her, and Charlize Theron has known people who were like her, and she's seen a lot of them unfortunately perish because there is a rule that can be bent in the immortality that will eventually end them. I thought that was done in a very fascinating manner, and I was very intrigued for that first half. But then the second half, another plot really starts to kick in, because you do have this villain, and you have Ejiofor, who is trying to find these immortals and harness their abilities, and Dudley Dursley is the villain, and he heads this pharma company, and he's trying to elevate it to the next level and make a lot of money off of it. It's it stops being as unique as it could be because of that. I don't consider these things a spoiler because this is stuff that's revealed really in the first few minutes, so I'm not too worried about the fact that people are getting spoiled here. This happens within the first act. And I keep coming back to this, but it really takes away the uniqueness of the concept in the first place, because these characters have become so human at this point to go for this very cartoonish final act and certain things happening in it because of this villain. I just didn't really buy it. I felt like it was betraying its own tone and its own seriousness in the process of making something really fun and energetic in the last act, which it could have still been, while also maintaining that tone, which was making it work as well as it was. Also, another issue I have with the film, which I feel like is going to come up in almost every review, is the soundtrack. The film has great songs, it has a decent score, but it also has the most abrasive song choices in many ways. It has songs that'll play before an action scene starts off, in the middle of action scenes, and they don't quite gel as well as I think the filmmakers wanted it to. I'm all for music in films elevating stuff. It's just, it felt really abrasive. At one point in time, it felt very Suicide Squad-like in its approach, and that was actually a little concerning. I said, please let this not be the entire film, but there's this one moment like that. That being said, I did have a pretty decent time with it. There are things to enjoy in this movie, like I said, quite a bit, and I think general audiences are going to enjoy this movie. It's on Netflix. Grab some popcorn, have some drinks on a Saturday evening. This is like a perfect film to watch. It's a great summer blockbuster action movie. It fits the quota perfectly. If that is what you want, you're gonna get that in strides, and it accomplishes those things perfectly. But if you want something maybe a little more evenly structured and something which could have been a lot stronger in its final delivery, might have some issues with that. I'm gonna give The Old Guard a 7 out of 10. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Look forward to a lot more reviews this weekend. There's a lot that's come out. Greyhound, Palm Springs. I actually did not see First Cow in March because the pandemic happened. Looking forward to talking about all those things. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe, guys. Thank you very much as always, and I'll see you guys in the movies.